Hi, my name is Premdas, and welcome to Premdas Talks. So, the video that I'd like to do today is actually one that I really want to do. Sometimes I don't want to do a video, they just come through or they don't. But today I want to do this video because I find it interesting. So, spiritual practice. Should we do a spiritual practice or should we not do a spiritual practice? For me, this is not actually the question. The question is, why? Why do a spiritual practice? Okay? So lately, I've been seeing online and through different interviews and on Facebook or whatever, there seems to be a conversation appearing. One is there actually a separate self, or is there not a separate self? Should we engage in spiritual practice, or should we not engage in spiritual practice? Do we need to? So the question that keeps coming up for me when I watch these videos or witness these dialogues is, why? Why are we actually engaged on a spiritual path to begin with? And I think if we can answer that question, then these other sort of debates and questions will resolve themselves. That's what happened for me. So, two reasons why I began on the spiritual path, because I can only talk about my experience here as this character. Okay, two reasons. Curiosity and suffering. Curiosity. Who am I? Who is God? What is life all about? I'm curious. I've always wanted to know the truth. I want to know what's happening. Second question, suffering. On my 19th birthday, I woke up and a friend of mine said, "Hey, happy birthday." And I thought, I'm not happy. And so I prayed to God that night. I surrendered to God and I said, hey, I don't want to suffer. And please take away this suffering. Help me to get rid of this suffering. And also help me to achieve the things that I want to do in order to make myself happy, right? So I wanted to become happy. I didn't want to suffer. So curiosity and suffering. These are the two reasons why I embarked upon a spiritual path. Now, okay. Now, next point. RamanaMaharshi has a teaching, a pointer, where he talks about a radio. If you open up the radio, there's no one inside. Good afternoon, this is Walter Cronkite. Welcome to the news. Or TV or a radio. If you open up the TV or radio, let's say radio, there's no one in there. You don't find anybody. RamanaMaharshi said it's the same thing with the human being. If you open up the human being, you don't find a separate self. So let's say that you hear this teaching, like right now. But you hear this teaching, but that's not your living reality. It's not your direct experience. These are important words. You do feel a separate self. You do feel separate from life. I, other. Everything feels separate. So it's not your experience. That teaching, you hear it, doesn't resonate. 1 year later, let's say, or a month later, doesn't matter. You hear the same teaching again. Radio, no one inside. Human being, no one inside. This time, for whatever reason, we don't know why really, but it resonates. It rings true in your heart. Maybe you even intellectually somehow understand what that's pointing to. Oh, okay, I get it. I get it. I understand what is being said, what is being pointed to. And more than that, I would say, it's not just an intellectual understanding, but there's something in the heart that starts to wake up or buzz. There's a feeling of truth resonating there. Okay, 1 year from that point. So you're not awake, let's say. The big bang hasn't happened, let's say. 1 year later, you hear the same teaching again. Radio, open it up, nobody inside. Human being, open it up, nobody inside. No doer, no separate person. This time you hear it, and pow. Or no pow. Just, it happens, right? Every cell and fiber of your being gets it. It is seen. It is your living reality now. It is your direct experience. You look inside, you can't find a separate self. You look outside, you don't perceive separation. It's not your experience. Everything is seen to be one, experienced to be one. So, when this happens, I would imagine, The curiosity questions have been answered. Who am I? What is God? What is life? Consciousness is the answer, let's say. It becomes apparent. It's a living reality, direct experience that all there is this. Consciousness, being, God, whatever you want to call it. Suffering. Well, the sufferer has dissolved, disappeared, no longer can be found. And you hear people talk about no more suffering, only love now. So the teaching, the pointer, it did its thing. There's no more suffering, and your questions, let's say, have been answered. RamanaMaharshi said, you know, if you're stirring a fire with a stick, at some point you don't need that stick anymore. You throw the stick in the fire. Or Buddha said, if you want to cross the river in a boat, at some point you don't need that boat. When you get to the other side, you don't need the boat anymore. You can discard the boat. But if you're in the middle of the river, okay, you probably don't want to let go of the boat yet, because otherwise you'll drown in the water. But let's say it has happened. Let's call it awakening. The personal separate me, that which feels separate, has dissolved, disappeared. It's no longer there. Curiosity has been fulfilled. No more suffering has been fulfilled. So now if I ask you or tell you, you should embark upon spiritual practice, what are you going to say? I don't need a spiritual practice anymore because there's no more I. There's no more me. It doesn't make sense. What would be the motivation? Well, all my questions got answered. My suffering disappeared. I am what I am. To continue to embark upon a spiritual practice may happen. The body may continue doing Tai Chi or yoga or meditation. But I don't know if it would. But what's happening inside, let's call it the core reality of who or what we are. If the answers have been answered, if the questions have been answered, and the suffering has disappeared, if that feeling of completeness and wholeness is present, no lack, no separation, I think you're cooked, right? That being said, life appears to continue. The body, even though, let's say it's enlightened, or the person's enlightened, however you want to talk about it, let's say that has happened though, the body goes to work though. The body still eats its breakfast because the body is actually separate from what you are in a sense. The body needs the food, the body will continue to eat. The body will sleep or not sleep. So all of those things continue. Life continues to happen. But the curiosity, the questions have been answered, the suffering has dissolved. So I think I've pointed to what I wanted to point to. I think you get the gist of what I'm saying. So should you practice? Should you not practice? It all depends on what your living reality is, what your direct experience of truth is, your direct experience of you, God, whatever you want to call it is. If these questions have been answered for you, if there's no more you as a separate you, if the suffering is gone, I don't see why you would need to do any more spiritual practice. Is there more evolution? Perhaps there's a deepening and a further seeing of this. I don't know. I'll tell you when I get there. Okay, I'm going to stop this recording. God bless. Have a wonderful day, and namaste.